One of the largest contributors to unsatisfactory or unsuccessful performances in your training is going to have to deal with your connective tissue throughout your body. Progression throughout your training can be profoundly affected by these affective areas that we like to refer to as trigger points. So what we're going to do first is start with a test and retest portion of the series. So we're going to test out your front rack. You can visibly see the grimace in my face for trying to perform an unweighted front rack before my warm-up. Not only can I guarantee results from this, I can promise you this will be a game changer that you apply to your arsenal in your warm-ups for almost all of your lifts. We're going to start out using a lacrosse ball. We're going to work on our forearms, tricep, pecs, and lats. We're striving to improve the connective tissue that forms the foundation for everything that we do. You don't have to do the whole muscle groups. You just have to move around, as you can see me doing in the video, to find the trigger points. Now we're going to start out with our forearms first. We're going to start towards the bottom of our wrist. Here's where we're going to roll around on the ball, moving it towards our elbow till we find these trigger points. Once we find these trigger points, if possible, we're going to add weight. You can see this done by how I place my arm on top of my other, pressing into the ball. From here, you'll see me begin to move my wrist around, working on that trigger point and alleviating the pressure throughout. I prefer to do mine with a closed fist, simply if nothing else because I am an Olympic weightlifter and this is how I lift with a barbell in my hand, and we're never lifting and moving in static positions. It's always a dynamic movement. From here, the next thing I like to do is move to the tricep. We're going to start at the elbow and we're going to move backwards towards the shoulder using the same formula. We're going to move around till we find some trigger points. The difference on this one is once I find those trigger points, I'm going to use the other hand to stabilize the ball so it cannot move. And I'm going to begin to flex and extend my arm similar to that of a bicep curl, pressing weight against the tricep, slowly moving it up and down. After I've done my triceps, this is where I like to move on to my pecs or chest, if you will. We're going to start at the lower outside and we're going to move our way around and into the shoulder, trying to alleviate any connective tissue that we might have. I like to do this one leaning into a pole. I can get a lot of pressure into the joint and a lot of tissue will begin to move around. If you find a very hard trigger point, this is where you can lean into the pole with as much emphasis on your body as you can, as much as the tissue will handle. And the final group that we're going to focus on for this is going to be the lat. Now the lat is a very large muscle. It's the largest one we're going to work on in this series. It extends from the armpit all the way down past mid-back. For purposes on this, we're only going to focus on the upper portion of the lat, from the armpit down to about mid-back. This is your very thick, meaty portion of the lat. Now, we're also going to be, again, a service. I like to use a wall for this. Same principles that we used on our forearms, triceps, and chest. Roll that ball around until you find those trigger points. Once you find those trigger points, you can begin then to dig in. You can use static holds and dynamic movement around those areas just to alleviate the pressure throughout the movement. And finally, guys, one of the most popular questions I get with a series of this nature is how long should I work on those trigger points? Those trigger points, you are going to work on them until A, you no longer feel any change, or B, you are satisfied with the change that you have inflicted upon yourself. Now, the last thing I want you to do is go and retest with that front rack position. You'll see me doing it here in my normal front rack position. Before testing, you can see where the bar is just barely below my chin. Once I've alleviated all those trigger points, I can now move to an open-handed front rack with an empty barbell. I can tell you this took me many years to perfect, many years to work on, and a lot of athletes struggle to have a front rack with an empty barbell.